you got it, and can you send me the link afterwards? Felicity. ואז אנחנו נחכה. טוב, תעדכן אותי כזה כשאתה רואה שזה... נראה לי... תגידי, השורה הריקה לא יכולה ככה תזיזי אנשים קדימה. אוקיי, בסדר. טוב, ביי.
It still is. Russell and I we're always laughing this side.
Need another donor. Maybe Evelyn wants to... Okay. Got him. Good. We're going to start in a few minutes.
Commissioner of Fire and Rescue.
He's here. Do you want to say hi? Came in the boat. Good evening, everyone. We're going to be starting shortly. Please take your seats. You can move closer as well. All of those in the back, there's places here. We'll begin in just a few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome to Jewish National Fund USA and Karen Kayemet Israel's 9/11 Memorial Ceremony. My name is Yael Avantin, and I'm honored to be your MC this evening. We thank you in advance for wearing your masks throughout the ceremony. Please also note that this ceremony is being live streamed for all who are not able to be with us in person today. You can find the video to share with your friends and family on the JNF USA, KKL, and United States Embassy social media pages. This evening, we mark the 20th anniversary of the infamous terrorist attack that took place on United States soil, changing the world forever. On that day, nearly 3,000 innocent people from a staggering 61 countries were killed in this horrific tragedy. We stand here at the Jewish National Fund USA and Jewish National Fund Karen Kayemet Israel's 9/11 Living Memorial, constructed with the generous support of Mr. Ed Blank of New York and the legacy of the late Branka Stavsky Rabin Weintraub. The memorial was designed by the artists Eliezer Weishoff and architect Yechiel Cohen, who are both with us today. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the presentation of the colors by the U.S. Marine Detachment and the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner by Anna Tabachnikov, accompanied by keyboard player Leonid Dettelman.
March on colors.
remain standing for a moment of silence, followed by Kaddish. Thank you.
Retire the colors.
וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמת יקושה ברכו לעילה במקום ברכתה שירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה תאמינם בעלמה ואמרו אמן יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה חיים ושבע וישוע נחמה של זבה ורפואה וגאולה וסליחה וכפרה ורבע והצלה לנו לכל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן עושה שלום במרומה וברחמה יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ואמרו אמן.
Thank you. That was Paris Abraham, father of Alona Abraham Zichronah Livracha, who was a passenger on United Airlines Flight 175, one of the planes that flew into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. You may be seated. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the following individuals who have joined us for this ceremony, in person or online. President of Jewish National Fund USA, Dr. Saul Lizerbrum. Vice Chairman of KKL-JNF, Yair Lustin. Chief Executive Officer, Jewish National Fund USA, Russell Robinson. United States Embassy, Jerusalem, Chargé d'Affaires, Michael Ratney. Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Elisha Peleg. Former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Olmert. Chief Israel Officer, Jewish National Fund USA, Eric Michelson. Fire and Rescue Commissioner, Deli Simche. Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Martin Mouanabali. Chief of State Protocol, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Gil Haskel. Distinguished members of the Diplomatic Corps, family members, and other honored guests. As we gather today to remember the thousands of souls who perished on that fateful day, we feel a great sense of solace in the knowledge that their memories fuel our strength, their stories give us courage, and their legacies will be upheld for generations to come. Bruno Dellinger, a World Trade Center survivor, managed his small company from an office on the 47th floor of the North Tower, developing ties between New York and his home country of France. Here's his testimony.
It took me 50 minutes to come down from the 47th floor because I left about 15 minutes after the attack. Anyway, so we went down. People were very calm, and I think everybody in the stairwell was like this, determined, but also aware that, unconsciously aware that something very dangerous was happening, and remained calm because it was the best thing we had to do. There were three flows of people. The regular people like me going down, the people who were coming down from the upper floors and who were very badly injured, no skin, no hair, just burned, and they were walking or carried down by people, helped by people. And then the third flow of people was, of course, the security personnel and fire department people. Now, those people were exhausted. In some of those eyes, you could see that they knew something, that it was dangerous. While there was no panic whatsoever in the stairwell, those people were concentrated, focused on doing that job. And while I was walking down, they were going up to their death, and I was walking down to live.
I would now like to invite Vice Chairman of KKL-JNF, Yair Lustin, to the podium to share his remarks.
Dear families of those who perished, survivors of the 9/11 attacks. United States Embassy in charge d'affaires, Mr. Michael Ratney, President of the Jewish National Fund USA, Dr. Saul Lizerbrum, Chief Executive Office of JNF USA, Russell Robinson, representatives of Israeli and American first responders, distinguished members of the diplomatic corps, honored guests and friends. 20 years ago, humanity faced the most tragic terror attack it has ever experienced. A poisoned fruit of true evil, seeking to instill fear and panic in the hearts and minds of people around the globe. The terrorists who perpetrated this heinous act did not distinguish between race, nationality, or faith. They had only one goal: to kill, maim, and destroy. We stand here today before the only monument outside the United States to include the names of all victims of 9/11, to honor those dear to us who perished in this tragedy, and to remember the 2,977 killed and thousands injured that horrific day. We also dedicate this day to the memory of the first responders, firefighters, and police officers who gave their lives valiantly, selflessly, trying to rescue those trapped in the flames and in the ruins. With us today are family members of the victims who perished on 9/11. We thank you for choosing to commemorate this difficult day here with us today, and hope that through our actions, we are honoring the memory of your loved ones as well as the thousands of others of victims of 9/11, remembering too all you have been through since that dark day 20 years ago. Any of us who watched in horror from afar will never forget that day, indelibly etched in our personal and collective psyche. We will never be able to truly fathom what you went through on that day and every day since. May the memory of your loved ones be a blessing. This monument, established by Keren Kayemet L'Israel, Jewish National Fund, and the Jewish National Fund of the USA, exemplifies the faith the United States of America and the State of Israel share in their ongoing battle against terrorism and extremism. The attacks of 9/11 were not only assaults in the U.S., they were aimed at the values near and dear to all champions of democracy and what it embodies in the U.S., here in Israel, and around the world. An assault by forces of darkness on forces of light. It was a clarion call to all of us to ensure nothing like 9/11 ever happens again. A call to arms against the forces of evil and oppression. Sadly, the State of Israel and we, the Jewish people, are all too familiar with terror. Throughout our history, we have suffered the malevolence of hatred, intolerance, and discrimination, and there are those who continue to seek to harm and destroy us in Israel and elsewhere. But both the United States of America and the State of Israel will continue to persevere. We will protect our nations from all forms of terrorism and will not waver in our determination to defend the universal values expressed in the American and Israeli declarations of independence: democracy, freedom, justice, equality, and much more. This monument holds with it a commitment to all the victims, survivors, and their families. It is a commitment to sow, to plant, and to cultivate, a commitment not most becoming the State of Israel and those of us at Keren Kayemet L'Israel, in a place where some wish to disrupt, uproot, and tear apart, enveloped in this peaceful Arazim Valley. This monument is a symbol of flourishing, of life, of continuity. Here we choose each year to take an oath to those who perish, to do all we can to build an even better tomorrow for future generations, a future of hope and the belief in the spirit of mankind, with no place for hatred and evil or horrific events such as those which occurred on September 11, 2001. Yehi zichram shel hanispim baruch. Toda rabba. Shana tova v'gmar chatima tova.
Thank you for those remarks. Friends, now I'd like to direct your attention to the main screens to hear from Jewish National Fund USA's president, Dr. Saul Lizerbrum.
Friends, Havarim Shalom. 20 years ago, we bore witness to one of the most heinous acts ever committed against the United States and the Western world. Yet, over the past 2 decades, we have also seen the very best of humanity coming together to build a brighter future for our children and children's children. Jewish National Fund USA and Keren Kayemet Israel 9/11 Memorial, located here in the foothills of Jerusalem, is the only 9/11 memorial outside of the United States that lists all the names of those who perished on that tragic day. Our 9/11 memorial stands as a powerful symbol of hope, tolerance, and a belief that our best days are yet to come. We all remember exactly where we were on that fateful day. We remember the lives that were taken from us. As leaders, we now have a responsibility to educate a new generation that did not bear witness to the events of 9/11. We must never forget. Every year, Jewish National Fund USA engages a new generation of young people as we honor American first responders by holding ceremonies led by school children who pay tribute to their valor and bravery. Through these ceremonies, we are educating and empowering the next generation to keep alive the memory of 9/11 and the 3,000 souls who departed our world that day. Ladies and gentlemen, at this memorial, you will see that you are surrounded by hundreds of trees. They symbolize life, living, and renewal. They also represent everything that is good in our world. By establishing this small forest around our 9/11 memorial, we ensure that the memories of those who passed will never be forgotten and that their legacies will live on for generations to come. I encourage you, after today's ceremony, to take a moment and walk amongst these trees. Feel their bark, hear the rustle of their leaves, and pause to remember that the ground you stand on is rooted in the good deeds and bravery of countless men and women, so we may be free today. Let us continue to say, tolerance, not terror, peace, not war. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming U.S. Embassy Jerusalem Chargé d'Affaires Michael Ratney to the podium to share his remarks. These will be followed by Deanna Lupo, who will perform the Secret Garden on the violin, accompanied by Maria Goldberg playing the harp.
Thank you very much. President of the Jewish National Fund USA, Dr. Lizerbrum, the Vice Chairman of Keren Kayemet Israel, Mr. Lutstein, the CEO of the Jewish National Fund USA, Russell Robinson, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Your Excellency Elisha Peleg, the former Prime Minister of Israel, Your Excellency Ehud Olmert, the Chief Israel Officer of the Jewish National Fund USA, Eric Michelson, Fire and Rescue Commissioner Dedi Simchi, Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Ambassador Martin Wanambale, the Chief of State Protocol of the Foreign Ministry of Israel, Ambassador Haskell, and all my distinguished colleagues from the diplomatic community, family members, and honored guests. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and good afternoon to all of you. I sometimes find myself wondering why, with all the wonderful events of our lives to celebrate, birthdays and weddings, anniversaries, our national holidays and our personal victories, we still find it necessary to mark the days when terrible things happened. In fact, that's why we're here this afternoon, to mark a day, September 11th, 2001, when something very terrible happened, when America was attacked, violated, when thousands of our citizens and the citizens of dozens of other countries, including Israel, were murdered. It was indeed a terrible day. It was a day when we began to feel vulnerable, exposed to danger in a way that was then quite alien to most Americans, certainly those of my generation. Personally, I can't forget. I was in Washington, D.C. on that day, and at the time, I was actually working on the Israel desk at the U.S. State Department. And that morning, a colleague, a New Yorker, I remember him well, called me over to the television in his office to watch as events unfolded in New York and in Pennsylvania and in Virginia, just across the Potomac River from my office. We could see smoke rising from there, from the Pentagon, and at first, we weren't sure why. Looking back, we know that it was only about 90 minutes, a staggeringly brief moment, and in that moment, nearly 3,000 people were killed. But what I remember at the time is a period that seemed much, much longer than 90 minutes, a period when we didn't fully comprehend what was happening, or at least I didn't. The reality hit me slowly, and then all of a sudden. The State Department had sent everybody home that morning. I was walking back to my apartment, but for some reason, I had left my house keys and my phone in the office and wasn't sure how I'd get in. As I walked home, I saw people across Washington doing the same thing, wondering the same thing. I saw employees flooding out of the White House through Lafayette Park. I saw office workers trekking north on the sidewalks, unsure if the subway was operating. Something was very different. I was personally safe, I thought. I thought my family was safe. But in those 90 minutes, I realized the world had changed. It may be hard to realize that 20 years have passed since that day. In this era of short memories and shorter attention spans, it's probably too easy to forget that day. Perhaps a quarter of the current US population wasn't even born yet. It's also too easy for us to turn away, to tune out, to spend our days ensconced in our daily lives and seeking to celebrate things good and joyful and maybe even trivial. But I think we're here today because we feel a powerful need, even a responsibility, to remember terrible events and to remember September 11th in particular. We don't do this in order to let a terrible memory rule our lives. We do it to remind us what matters, what's at stake, who our friends are, who we can count on. I think about that now. September 11th may have been when many of us in America started doing that mental inventory. Who can we count on when something terrible happens? Not in some far-off place, but in our own communities. I think it's the first time I started hearing our police officers and firefighters and EMTs regularly referred to as first responders. And it's when I started hearing those first responders referred to as heroes. I think September 11th was also when many Americans started thinking about who we can count on outside our own borders. We saw friends and partners and allies stand with us in solidarity throughout the world. And Israel, a country that suffered more than its share of terrorism, that knew better than most what we were going through, was foremost among those friends. So I'm grateful to the Keren KKL and the Jewish National Fund USA for having created this remarkable site, with the support of Mr. Ed Blank of New York and the legacy of the late Branka Stavsky Rabin Weintraub. It's a site which offers us this vital opportunity each year to stand together, and not just to mark a day when something terrible happened, but to recognize the good and the brave and the selfless in our societies, to recognize the extraordinary bond between Israel and the United States, a bond that predates September 11th by decades, that predates my own life and the lives of many of us here, a bond which will endure beyond the lives of any of us. And let's also use this to remember who we can count on. President Biden, speaking on August 31st, it was the end of the 20-year war that began in the wake of those September 11th attacks, said this: "For anyone who gets the wrong idea, let me say it clearly. To those who wish America harm, to those that engage in terrorism against us or our allies, know this: the United States will never rest." Standing here today at this remarkable memorial, we recall that terrible day in 2001, and we honor the memory of the victims. In their honor, let us reaffirm our sense of solidarity, our friendship and partnership, and our shared commitment to our most cherished values. That should be the lasting legacy of September 11th.
Thank you, Charge d'Affaires Mike Ratney, for those moving words. And thank you, ladies, for that really, truly beautiful performance. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert will now be joining us at the podium. Back in 2009, the former Prime Minister was instrumental in bringing a piece of the melted metal from the ruins of the Twin Towers, which formed the base of this monument in Israel.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The Honorable Charge d'Affaires of the United States, the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Commander of the Fire Brigades, representatives of the JNF both here and in America, distinguished guests. 20 years is a long time in the life of one person, but the last 20 years seemed to be very short time because the memories of the towers as they were set in fire still lives in the minds and hearts of people in almost every corner of the world. I remember myself being in the middle of the way, in the air, between New York and Jerusalem, when the captain of the El Al flight came to me and took me aside and said, Mayor, right now, the one of the two towers of New York was falling apart as a result of a terrorist attack. And everyone has his story of where he was when he first heard of this terrible event, and what he felt and what he tried to do and what he thought about what will happen. And it did happen in 2001, in the middle of a war which we had here in Jerusalem, against terror, against hatred, against the extremism of fundamentalists and radicals that were set out to kill innocent people, to destroy urban centers, to damage national symbols, and to try and upset the balance of life of people in this very unique place, which is so important and so sensitive for so many people from across the world. There were always special relations between these two great cities, New York and Jerusalem. The former mayor of New York, the mayor at the time of the events of September 11, Rudy Giuliani, used to say that New York was the capital of the world. Well, I was never sure that he was accurate, considering the fact that I was the mayor of the city which appeared to have been perhaps the most sensitive place in the whole world for so many years, long before the city of New York became such a powerful and dominant and central place for the whole world. But I felt that on that morning, when the events took place in New York, and the world was shaken by these extremists, that there was an additional, deeper, stronger bond created between the people there and the people here, and those who love New York and those who love the city of Jerusalem. And this was the reason why we felt, perhaps more than most other places, important centers in the world, that we have to commemorate the events of September 11 in a way which will honor the fighters and the victims, and the names of all of them are here with us in this memorial, in this hill, in the Judean hill, in the city of Jerusalem, looking from here towards the entire world. We learn a lot of lessons from what happened there. We understand now more than ever before that the war against extremism, fanaticism, is something that should be common to all peace-loving people, no matter where they live. We understand it better. People in America understand it better. People that looked at America as the center of democracy, of equality, of tolerance, of humanity, understand their commitments to these values much better as a result of what America had to deal with then and in many different ways since then. The war against terror has not ended. We're in the middle of it. Here, but not only here. We have to do everything in our power with an enormous determination, without any acquiescence, with a complete commitment, and without any restraints against killers, murderers that are ready to kill people that have done nothing to deserve the hatred that they want to spread across the world. I hope that this lesson will continue to unite all of us who come for democratic societies, who are prepared to devote everything that it takes in order to defend democracy, humanity, and tolerance, and that the events which then took place in the center of the world will never be repeated again.
Thank you, former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Yehudit Levinar, mother of Shai Levinar, Zichrono Livracha, who worked in the North Tower, followed by the singer Anna Tabachnikov, accompanied by keyboardist Leonid Detzelman playing Lirot et Haor, to see the light.
Distinguished guests, thank you all for being here with us today. Our son Shai, died on September 11. When we buried Shai, and then we had to bury him once more, and then again, 4 times in total. Opening the grave over and over again felt like a destructive attempt to make him all again, to see him once more, but not really. I wanted to share with you, dear guests, what I said during Shai's last burial in 2014. Our Shai, and again we are burying you for the 4th time, and again we are losing you for the 4th time. How strange and unbelievable it is to bury you again in a grave that is already yours for 13 years. I hardly cried when the girls informed me that more parts of your body have been found and that we need to bury you once more. I hardly cried, but the pain in my heart and the sadness were both unbearable. Sadness that never ends and never will. And you, Shai, you came back to us again. You, who were in my body, came back to me again. You, who were over 6.4 in height, came back, broken down into small pieces. They say God loves them young and beautiful. If he loves so much, why did he let Shai die? Why didn't he let Shai live? Why did God take him? and in pieces, no less. It says in the Talmud, do not make a woman cry. God counts her tears. And my tears, God, haven't you counted enough? Shai, at your first funeral, there were a lot of people. It seems that everyone who's ever knew you has been there. Back then, your grave had nothing around it. There were no other graves around. Today, there are a lot of graves around yours, and we lost so many since you died, even your little brother, Raz. How can we let you go? And for the fourth time? Every funeral is stirring up another piece of my heart. Every burial makes another part of me, takes another part of me, and buries it with you, my son. I remember a time everything was different. A time I was able to let my heart rest. That heart has been aching for 13 years now. We are standing here next to you, and you are so far. Everybody is looking down to hide the tears. You would think doing something for the fourth time will be easier than the times before. For us, it is only getting harder and harder. I miss your smile, Shai. I see it in my mind all the time. Your eternal smile, your beautiful smile. Everybody knew and made my heart so happy. Instead of seeing your smile, all that is left is the cold stone of your grave and the aching heart. The tombstone has the sentence engraved on it: unforgettable husband, father, and son and brother. You are always in all of our hearts. Each part of you is a part of us. You are with us, and we are with you, my darling son. And so, it always will be, Shai.
כי ראיתי את דרכי נעלמת ביער סבוך בין קירות שורשים ובתוך האדמה המדממת רגליי ננעשו היכו שורשים ולרגע יכולתי לשמוע עלים מלמדים שירתם ורציתי לעלות גבוה לפרוח איתם הכרתי טיפותיו של הגשם נקבות בתוכי יורדות מתחתיי והרוח קרה ונואשת הקפיאה אותי הכבידה עליי ולרגע יכולתי לנגוע בקצה הכאב האפור ורציתי לעלות גבוה לראות בשקט, עצמתי עיניי, אטמתי ליבי והרגשתי איך אני מתפרקת מכל כאביי, מכל בדידותי. לרגע יכולתי לברוח כנוצה כנפה של ציפור, ורציתי לעלות גבוה לראות את האור. ולרגע יכולתי לברוח כנוצה כנפה של ציפור, ורציתי לעלות גבוה לראות את האור, לראות את האור, לראות את האור.
Marine Detachment and Israeli firefighters will now assist in the wreath-laying ceremony, accompanied by Maria Goldberg on the harp, Diana Lupo on the violin, and Leonid Detzeman on the recorder, playing The Lonely Shepherd. To lay a wreath on behalf of the families of the 9/11 victims and terror attacks around the world, Rina Kaufman, sister of Leon Libor, who died in the North Tower, and Efrat Avraham, sister of Alona Avraham. Chairman of Keren Kayemet L'Israel, Yair Lustin, will lay a wreath on behalf of Keren Kayemet L'Israel, Jewish National Fund. Affairs, Michael Ratney, will lay a wreath on behalf of the American people. Mr. Ike Blacher will lay a wreath on behalf of JNF USA National Board of Directors. National Fund USA's Chief Israel Officer, Eric Michelson, will lay a wreath on behalf of Jewish National Fund USA. Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Elisha Peleg, will lay a wreath on behalf of the City of Jerusalem. Retired U.S. Detective Elliot Miller and retired Homeland Security Officer Roger Mayo on behalf of U.S. first responders. Excellency Martin Mwanabali, Ambassador and the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, Embassy of Zambia, will lay a wreath on behalf of the diplomatic community. Israel's Fire and Rescue Services Commissioner, Dedi Simchi, will lay a wreath on behalf of Israel's Fire and Rescue Authority. Chief of State Protocol Gil Haskel will lay a wreath on behalf of the Israel Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. Mark Rosenberg will lay a wreath on behalf of Nefesh B'Nefesh. On behalf of the organization, we would like to thank the teams of KKL-JNF and Jewish National Fund USA, the U.S. Embassy, and the Israel Police for all the work that was put into organizing this moving event. To conclude this evening's ceremony, please stand for Israel's national anthem, Hatikva. Please welcome back Anna Tabinoko, accompanied by Leonid Dettelman on the keyboard, violinist Diana Lupo, and harp player Maria Goldberg. concludes our 9/11 memorial ceremony. Thank you for your attendance.